Hola, Isabela. So glad to chat today because we're diving into a topic that it's really close to my heart as a science communicator. And I think it touches so many lives without people even realizing it.
Hola, Sofia. Me too. I'm genuinely curious about this one. You mentioned enmeshment, and honestly, it sounds like a tangled mess almost. I mean, I've heard the term before, but what does it really truly mean in, a practical sense?
Exactly. You hit it right there with tangled mess. Enmeshment, Isabella, is a psychological term, first introduced by a family therapist named Salvador Minuchin, and it describes a relationship dynamic where personal boundaries are just completely blurred. Mostly, it's between parents and children. It means your sense of self, your individual self, your autonomy. It gets diminished. It's like you can't quite tell where you end and your parents begin because your lives are just so intermingled, emotionally and often practically too. Wow, that's actually a pretty powerful image, where you end and your parents begin. So it's not just like being super close with your family, right? Because I feel like a lot of families are really close. Is there a difference then between that healthy closeness and what you're describing as enmeshment? Oh, absolutely. That's a crucial distinction. Healthy closeness or intimacy, it's beautiful. It fosters connection and support. But enmeshment, it's pathological. It's a level of attachment that actually hinders your independent development. In these relationships, individuals often struggle to truly experience, understand, and value their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own needs. It's like your internal world isn't really yours alone.
Okay, that makes sense. So, Sophia, what are some of the actual signs that someone might be experiencing this enmeshment? Like, what should people be looking for in their own relationships or with their families?
That's a fantastic question, Isabella, and it's really important for self-awareness. The hallmark, the absolute biggest sign, is blurred or non-existent boundaries. There's just no clear emotional, sometimes even physical separation. Think about it, over-involvement. Family members are excessively involved in each other's lives, like everything, activities, emotions, you name it. There's also a real difficulty with autonomy and independence. People struggle to make decisions on their own, to pursue personal goals, or to develop an identity outside the family unit?
That resonates. So it's not just like someone asking for advice, but more like they can't make a decision without consulting or getting approval. And what about the emotional side of it? You mentioned emotional fusion, right?
Precisely. Emotional fusion is huge. There's a heightened sensitivity to family stress, and individuals feel overly responsible for others' emotions and well-being. They might absorb others' feelings or believe it's their job to keep everyone happy. And Isabella, a big one is lack of privacy. Personal space and privacy are often just not respected at all. And then there's the guilt and obligation, this pervasive sense of having to meet others' needs, often accompanied by a feeling of never doing enough. Guilt can actually be a manipulation tactic to discourage independence.
Oh, that's a tough one, the guilt. And I've heard about something called parentification before. Is that related to enmeshment and role confusion? Absolutely. It's a direct symptom. With enmeshment, parents might treat children as confidants or peers, expecting emotional support that's usually reserved for spouses. This can lead to children assuming adult roles, which is exactly what we call parentification. It blurs those lines even more. Also, there's often a fear of independence or conflict, where individuals worry that asserting themselves will damage the relationship or lead to abandonment. Conflict avoidance becomes very common.
So, Isabela, these characteristics, they don't just stay in childhood. They have really significant, long-lasting impacts, especially into adulthood. We're talking about mental health and relationships being profoundly affected.
I can only imagine. I mean, if you've grown up without a clear sense of self, that has to be incredibly challenging. What are some of the biggest ways this loss of identity manifests in adult life?
The loss of identity and autonomy is honestly devastating. Individuals might not have a strong sense of who they are, what they like, or what they truly want. because they've been conforming to parental expectations for so many years. This leads directly to difficulties in relationships, forming healthy romantic connections, friendships, even work relationships. You often see codependent patterns emerge because they never learned how to be an individual within a relationship. That's heartbreaking, really. So it's not just struggling with your family, but then it ripples out into every other connection you try to make. And what about emotional regulation? Does that get affected too? Oh, absolutely, Isabella. Emotional dysregulation is very common. Enmeshed individuals often struggle to tolerate distress, to self-soothe, and to manage their emotions independently. They might rely on others to regulate them, which again reinforces codependency. And then there's the anxiety and guilt, this constant underlying current, especially when they even try to assert independence. It's like a built-in alarm system against self-expression.
I see. And I imagine making decisions must be a nightmare. Like if you don't trust your own thoughts or feelings, how do you ever choose for yourself?
Exactly. Decision-making difficulties are huge. There's a constant struggle to trust one's own judgment and to make choices without needing to consult everyone around them. And Isabella, adult children may even blame themselves for any unhappiness or failure experienced by other family members. This whole dynamic, it really can be a form of emotional damage, a trauma, where a child just abandons their entire sense of self to please a caregiver.
So, we've talked about what enmeshment is and how it impacts people, but it's important to understand why it happens. It really often originates in childhood and can become this deeply ingrained generational pattern passed down through families.
Right, because nothing exists in a vacuum, especially family dynamics. So what are some of the primary reasons this kind of emotional intertwining starts?
Well, it can stem from parents projecting their own values, their own needs, and even their unfulfilled dreams onto their children. It's like, my child will achieve what I couldn't, but to an unhealthy extreme. Or parents might rely on children for emotional support due to their own loneliness, their own insecurity, maybe mental health issues, or even unresolved trauma from their past. It's a heavy burden to place on a child.
That's so profound. So the parents themselves might be struggling, and then without realizing it, they turn to their children in ways that aren't really healthy or appropriate for a child. And does attachment style play a role here?
Absolutely, Isabella. Parents with anxious attachment styles, for example, they might become overly involved and controlling. They're driven by their own fears, maybe fear of abandonment, and that can lead them to cling to their children in ways that stifle their child's independence. It's not malicious, but the impact is still damaging. It's often a cycle where the parents themselves experienced some form of emotional neglect or enmeshment in their own childhoods, and they just repeat the pattern without awareness.
Oh, that makes so much sense. So it's almost like a learned behavior, but one that causes more harm than good in the long run. It really highlights the importance of breaking these cycles, doesn't it?
Precisely. Breaking these cycles is key, and it requires a lot of self-awareness and conscious effort. It's not easy, but it is absolutely possible to shift these dynamics and create healthier relationships for future generations.
So, Sophia, knowing how complex and deeply rooted enmeshment is, what can someone actually do to start breaking free? Because it sounds like a really daunting process. It is a process, Isabella, but it leads to incredible personal growth and autonomy. The very first step, it's crucial. Recognize the problem. You have to acknowledge that enmeshment is present in your family dynamics. Without that awareness, nothing else can really happen, right? After that, establishing clear boundaries is absolutely vital. This means defining what you are and are not willing to do, and then communicating those limits to family members. It's hard, but it's essential. That sounds like the hardest part, actually, communicating those boundaries, especially if you're used to not having any. What about developing that sense of individual identity you mentioned earlier? Oh, that's where the fun really begins, You have to explore your own interests, your own values, your own goals, and your desires, totally separate from your family's expectations.
This can mean pursuing personal hobbies, making your own decisions, and consciously choosing not to conform to what others expect of you. And equally important, learn to identify and experience your own emotions. Recognize what you feel, not what you're told to feel or what mirrors others. I love that, where the fun begins. It sounds empowering. So it's about connecting with your authentic self. And what about that pervasive guilt you talked about? How do you work through that when you're trying to assert yourself?
The guilt. You have to understand that feeling guilty for asserting independence doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Often, it just signifies personal growth. It's not your responsibility to make your family happy. You need to communicate your needs clearly to family members to maintain healthier relationships. Take small steps toward autonomy. Make your own decisions, spend time alone, develop friendships outside the family. It's a journey, not a sprint.
So, Isabella, beyond setting boundaries and reclaiming your identity, there are other powerful strategies that can help sustain this journey toward autonomy. One of the most impactful is seeking professional support. That makes so much sense. I mean, it sounds like something a lot of people would need help navigating, especially if it's been a lifelong pattern. What kind of professional help is most effective here?
A therapist, especially a family systems therapist, can provide invaluable guidance and support. They can help you navigate those enmeshed relationships, develop truly healthy boundaries, and foster personal growth. Sometimes family therapy itself can be really beneficial because it helps all members understand their roles and build healthier communication skills together. It's not about blaming, it's about understanding the system.
That's a great point, involving the whole family if possible. And what about individual practices? Anything someone can do on their own to help build that stronger sense of self?
Absolutely. Building autonomy is also about actively engaging in activities you love, pursuing those personal interests you discovered, and expanding your social circle outside of your immediate family. The more you do things that are authentically you, the stronger that sense of self becomes. And practicing mindfulness is incredibly helpful. It teaches you to connect with your own thoughts and feelings in the present moment, without judgment, which is a crucial skill for differentiating yourself. Mindfulness makes so much sense for connecting with your inner world. So it sounds like a marathon, not a sprint, as you said. What's the final piece of advice you'd give? Patience, Isabella. You have to be patient with yourself and the process. Overcoming enmeshment takes time, it takes effort, and it's really important to focus on making small, consistent changes rather than expecting overnight transformations. Celebrate every little step you take toward recognizing where you end and your true self begins. It's a profound journey of self-discovery, and it's so worth it. Sophia, this has been so enlightening.
Thank you for sharing all of this. It's really given me a lot to think about.
De nada, Isabella. My pleasure. It's such an important conversation to have. Well, Isabella, we've unpacked enmeshment, its impact on identity, and the path to autonomy. We hope this sparks reflection. Please comment below if you've noticed these dynamics in your own experiences.
It's been so insightful, Sophia, and we're grateful to our listeners. If this resonated, please like, share, and subscribe to help us grow and reach more on their journey to a good life.
Absolutely. For daily inspiration, thought nuggets, and community, find Good Life Guide on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube. Watch on YouTube for calming visuals, or listen on Spotify and other podcast platforms for on-the-go insights.
For more resources, visit www.goodlifeguide.org. Sophia, thank you for your wisdom. We truly love spreading awareness and appreciate our community. We look forward to hearing from you.